Excellent. Welcome to Servala, the Open Cloud Native Service Hub. My name is Arne Aukia. I'm here together with our CTO, Tobias Brunner, and we're here to introduce Servala to you and, of course, the rest of the world. I'll do a short introduction first, and Tobias will share the vision behind Servala, where this comes from, why we started developing this. And then I'll go a little bit deeper in who benefits from the Servala, who are the stakeholders, some key features and capabilities. I'll include some examples and references. Then we have a live demo to look at what is there already. And then, of course, there's time for Q&A. If you have any questions that come up, you can enter them into the Q&A section here in the live webinar, or of course in the recording in the comments down below, and we're happy to answer them at the end of this session or afterwards then. So Vision, the company that created Servala, we have been in the software operations business for over 10 years now. And modern software needs a lot of external tools, whether that's databases, cache queues, etc. There's a lot of tooling that's needed, and of course makes sense not to reinvent that wheel all over in the application again. And on many infrastructures, these are not available. There might be available maybe as a container image or something, but it's not available as a 24/7 supported service. That means that if I develop an application and I need a database, and the database isn't available as a service, now I have to take care of two applications, my application and the database application as well. And of course, that doesn't scale. If there's multiple applications, that's just a lot of mental overload for developers to take care of that. So what if we could enable this not only on the public cloud, where there's a lot of services, of course, available, but also in the private clouds? Well, that's exactly where Servala comes from. We created the open source marketplace for managed services. So it can run on-prem, it can run in the private cloud, it can run in the sovereign cloud, it can run in the public cloud, wherever they want, wherever you want. And so Servala basically connects software vendors, also called ISVs on one side on top, with enterprise private clouds and public cloud providers. And Servala takes care of all the packaging, deploying, 24/7 support, updating, lifecycle management, and so on, so that the users of the enterprise private cloud, or the users of the cloud providers, can use these services in self-service. They can instantiate themselves, they can use them themselves. They don't need to wait for anybody. Servala takes care of providing them the service, and since they can run anywhere, that can especially also run on-prem in the air-gapped environments. This is the open source part. Vision then provides on top of that 99.99% SLA for the framework and for the services. We provide 24/7 support. We have all the certifications and security audits needed. So that's of course what we can bring to the table to bring to the Servala marketplace to your environment. I mentioned it's open source. Open source are three main components. There's a web application front end that you'll also see in the demo. There's the API that basically is used then to instantiate the service. And then there's the whole packaging and operations framework for applications so that they can be deployed anywhere, so that they can be operated from anywhere. And that's exactly the part that Tobias will introduce to you in more detail in just a second. And as mentioned, we then add support, SLA. We also add enterprise support agreements with both the open source and the commercial software vendors that are present. So you can have the licenses directly through the marketplace. And then, of course, you have the extensive partner network. So that's, of course, stuff that we bring as part of our product. And that's something that the open source, of course, might have some services included. But, of course, a partner network is not something that's included by default. And with that, I want to hand over to Tobias and let him talk about the application delivery challenges.
Thank you. So let me start. Yeah, so our vision is that we make it as easy as possible to onboard new applications into Servala. This is not so easy today, and we have to repeat many steps over and over again. For example, we have to package the software into a container and automate that process. Then we have to deploy the software, usually to multiple environments. And for that, we usually use Helm charts, which we have to create and maintain. And we have to somehow make the application available in self-service, for example, via an API. When the application is deployed, the ongoing work of day two operations begins. We collect metrics and alert on them. We install updates and conduct regular maintenance. We make sure that backups and restores are properly working. We monitor logs and a lot more for seamless operations. This is something we have to repeat for every single application we run, and many times we have to reinvent the wheel for various technical reasons. And this is the main reason why we have to reinvent the wheels many times: inconsistencies. Throughout all these many years of running applications, we more or less have seen everything. We have very powerful tools at hand, for example, containers, Helm charts, and Kubernetes. These are powerful building blocks with so many possibilities that everyone uses them differently. A few examples are container images with unpredictable behavior, for example, with which user and permissions the process runs, where the data is stored, which ports are exposed, or how the entry point behaves. Then we have a multitude of different Helm charts, each of them with the different idea how parameters are named or exposed and with a different amount of quality. Also regarding configuration of the application, some of them support environment variables, some of them expect configuration file in a certain format at a certain place. And when we dive into day 2 operations, we see a lot of interesting things, a vast amount of metric and logging formats, and many interesting other surprises. To overcome these hurdles, we aim to document these topics and define industry-wide patterns. We cannot really do this alone. We believe that this has to be done with a cross-company collaboration by building a consensus and a common understanding of these issues at hand. Our proposal is to ultimately standardize the application delivery process. We believe that when we document all the important parts of the application delivery process, we can ease the pain of it. Imagine you don't have to think about the same challenges over and over again. They are already solved and documented. And by having it documented and a predictable behavior, we think that we can make onboarding to Servala or a similar platform much easier than it is today. It allows to have consistent behavior over multiple platforms and software. Because of that, we invite you to this journey of defining solutions for these various application delivery challenges. And for that, we are building an advisory board to steer the effort and future development. We are a strong believer in open source and open standards, and that's why we want to work on it in the open. So applications are welcome. Contact us. Thanks. Now back to Arno.
Excellent. And with that, let me take over the screen share again and talk a little bit about the backgrounds and who are the stakeholders and who are we working with and why. So we have the 4 primary stakeholders for us are the software product developers. We also call them independent software vendors or ISVs. That's an industry term. And so they develop commercial or open source software, could be either one. Then we have the cloud infrastructure service providers or CSPs. That's also an industry term. We have enterprise IT organizations building a private cloud infrastructure. Private cloud infrastructure in this context could mean like on-prem, air-gapped, private. It could mean virtual private, so managed by a service provider. It could even mean like a public cloud, but just in your own environment. So it's kind of the separate, your own, basically IT governance field that we mean by that. And we have consulting partners, so consulting partners that help customers use the services, integrate them or configure them, and help the customer to use them properly, right? And for each of them, we think there's some unique benefits of Servala that make sense. So for a software, from an independent software vendor point of view, being in this marketplace can help them with market expansion. So access new customers, both through the servala.com public website, but of course also the cloud providers marketplaces where the services are available, and the enterprise private cloud users that can use these services on-prem, right? That, of course, gives them recurring revenue, so monthly revenue. We do the automatic metering, reporting, billing as part of the service monitoring, basically, right? We can provide 24/7 support, which of course includes the monitoring, alerting, logging, metrics, backups, maintenance processes, which Toby already explained as pain points. We can take care of that. And of course, we can take care of that at scale. Data sovereignty, since we bring the services to the data and not vice versa. You don't have to push the data somewhere to the service. Security and compliance becomes much easier. And to that, Vision, of course, has both the ISO certification, has an ISA 3402 audit report, which is equivalent to SOC 2. We take care of the data protection, whether it's GDPR or other legislation. And of course, since the data stays where the service is initiated, that's of course also much easier to argue. You don't have to push the data to a different country or continent. That's very easy also from a compliance point of view. And as a software vendor, adhering to open standards, of course, enable deploying on any infrastructure, whether that's then with or through Servala or not. That's the power of an open standard. Helps, of course, much more to stay open and to keep your options basically open. You don't have to commit to one cloud provider marketplace or do all of that integrations every time again, right? For cloud service providers, especially, we see a lot of small and medium-sized cloud service providers, especially in Europe. They are looking for additional revenue streams. So, of course, when running software services on your infrastructure, you can resell not only the infrastructure, but also the value-add software services on top. And that's, of course, interesting for CSPs in itself. But it also enables, of course, this self-service. Not only are customers asking for it, whether they have DevOps teams and need to have end-to-end control of their applications, including the services, but also it increases the stickiness, right? Customers that can get more services from you than just infrastructure as a service, they are more tied to your platform, they like you more, they use more, they stay longer as customers. So I guess that's a win-win situation for you and the customer, and of course also for Servala by transition. The ecosystem of a marketplace, of course, creates a network effect. So more services make you attract more customers that, of course, get more value from the number of services available. So this is kind of this positive feedback loop. Whether you need more services for public tenders or enterprise customers that have like a long list of services they want, you might have 5 or 10 by yourself. But of course, if we can bring you 20 or 25 additional ones, you'll have the 30 most important ones you can cross off. And of course, that helps you as a cloud provider, but of course also the customer, because they already have it there. They have one vendor, they have one API to provision it. So that's, of course, much easier for everybody. A trusted catalog. So we take care of the contents that is, of course, convenient, but also the open API makes the integration easy. So not only is the API open so you can integrate it easier, or we can help you integrate with that. If anybody else wants to integrate a different or other services, that's totally okay. That's the power of an open API. So you're not locking in yourself to Vision or Servala. You can use that Servala standard, and you can use any service provider can use that and integrate using the same integration. So that, of course, makes it much easier for you to add also other service providers or other software providers later. And bringing you a whole catalog of ready-made services, including all the operations and support and so on, of course, makes you innovate faster and makes your time to market faster. If you have a new service you want to onboard, it's already in Servala. That's basically a small configuration you have to change, because the API is the same, the integration is the same, the method is the same, it all works the same way. And of course, you can ride on and use the innovation and the work that the ISVs do for you, so you don't have to invest that much into innovation and creating new services by yourself. You can use the ecosystem, the partners, and of course the open source landscape to work for you. So we guess these are great benefits as a cloud service provider, not to reinvent all the services yourself. For enterprises, the benefits could be very similar, whether you are a cloud provider internally or externally are the same. Of course, the benefits might be different, or the viewpoints are different. So the trusted catalog of security reviewed and actively maintained services is the same, right? But of course, if we're in an enterprise context, this reduces also the risk of shadow IT and developers pulling random containers from the internet because they need this database and they need it right now for this proof of concept. And suddenly you have a 3-year-old container running in your infrastructure that nobody knows where it came from and nobody knows how to update. Right. So that's, of course, something if you can provide that service through a marketplace where you have a partner in the background, you have a consultant in the background, you have an SLA in the background, you have the whole support and update, of course, also contractually regulated. That's, of course, much easier and gives also not only the tools to enforce this governance and security, but also you can be more proactive about it, right? Instead of investing a lot in scanning and finding all the problems, you can make less problems appear in the first place, right? And of course, that's also integratable in your existing internal tooling, whether that's documentation, config management database, networks, firewalls, and so on. Since it's all automated, it's also all documented and it's all, you have an audit log of who did what, when, where. So that's much easier for you also to figure out what happened after the fact if necessary. So this, of course, means developer self-service. Developer self-service could be great, could be disastrous. So that's why this developer self-service with guardrails. So that means that you give the autonomy and efficiency. You don't have to wait for anybody to the internal users. They can do their own services, but only those services that you provide them and only in the way you provide them, right? So the platform owner keeps control. Platform owner makes sure that it's all properly documented. You know who did it, you know where to internally bill it. And of course, that's much better than people pulling random containers from the internet. And that leads then in the end to cost reduction because it's automated, cost reduction because there's economies of scale. If you have 100 developers running 100 random containers from the internet, that's much more expensive, takes up much more time than if you provide it once as a managed service and then 100 instances of those, they cost 100 times almost nothing. And of course, the usage transparency through the automation integration into your own chargeback system, so you can add cost label, so who to build it internally to, or you just do it via the cluster or the namespace. That, of course, helps you to keep track of who to allocate cost to. And as mentioned before, right, there's a lot of this kind of marketplaces in the public cloud and stuff, but this one runs on your infrastructure. And as I mentioned earlier, the infrastructure can be your on-prem air-gapped infrastructure. It can be private cloud, virtual private cloud, service provider managed. It could even be your enterprise public cloud environment. It runs in your IT governance boundaries. You control access to it. You control logging. You control audit logging. You control security. You have security and incident event management. It's all in there and it all happens in your environment. We bring the services to your data. You don't have to give the data away somewhere else and then find out later where it went, right? So that's, we believe, is a benefit for enterprise private clouds, whether that's any regulated industry basically that needs to keep track of where the data is. And I have some examples and references already later in the presentation to show you examples of that. And last but not least, we have consulting partners. Consulting partners are super important for us, and we believe there's many benefits for the consulting partners, of course, as well. Not only that they have a lead generation, so they get customers asking for stuff that they know that, I don't know, that if they're consulting partner for Kafka, then they know, with Kafka, I go to this consulting partner. So they already kind of pre-qualified for a sale, for a certain service, but of course also makes sales faster. For a lot of consulting partners, one of the reasons to work with us is to get 24/7 support. 24/7 support for the solutions that they build. If they build it on top of these managed services that we can do 24/7 support for, then of course we can do 24/7 support for the whole application, for the whole environment. And that's of course sometimes also a make or break point for customers if they have a business critical application there. Getting recurring revenue, not only for their regular consulting work of advisory, workshops, configuration, integration, customization, training is also a big option. And of course, if you bring your own customers and you resell the services to their customers, then of course you also have a margin of those services. So this is kind of a monthly revenue, monthly profits that you make in addition to your regular work. Let's put it this way, right? And a lot of our consulting partners, they bring innovation and influence, the platform features, service design. Hey, we need this parameter. We have a customer project that wants to be able to change this parameter of a service or whatnot. That's, of course, super valuable input. And of course, as partners, you have a direct line to us, and you can, whether you do a pull request by yourself or you tell us what problems you have. We're, of course, super interested to learn together and to integrate that into the product. So that's the kind of the benefits for the different stakeholders we've enumerated. So we launched a product 2 weeks ago, and I've already had quite a few questions about, okay, how does this compare to others, right? Others like internal developer platforms. Does this like kind of replace Backstage, right? In my opinion, no. This does not replace Backstage. Backstage is awesome, and other internal developer platforms, of course. They have a lot of, documentation. How do you deploy your Java application? How do you deploy your Python application? How do you work with your AI stuff, right? Here's a blueprint, here's a default image and whatnot, right? This is not what we do. What we do is we bring the auxiliary services that the same developers need, and we help fill the internal developer platforms with the generic tooling. So whether it's, and we have a whole list coming up later, whether it's databases, cache queue, reverse proxy, all of this tooling they need, we can bring the whole list into the developer platform, and then developers know how to use them. They can instantiate themselves, they can use it themselves. They don't have to go and ask anybody. But of course, we bring kind of the meat onto that bone. So there we see it's helping each other. It's not replacing actually at all. There's also like, how does this compare to like the marketplaces of large cloud providers, Amazon, Azure, Google, for example? So we think this is not replacing it, actually vice versa. We think that through the open standard, we can bring the serverless services also to the hyperscaler marketplaces. And that's actually the power of the open standard, right? So just as with serverless, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that do the custom serverless stuff for AWS and the custom serverless stuff for Azure and the custom serverless stuff for Google. But there's actually open source projects which kind of unify this. So you write it once, and then the framework makes sure it can run on any of these. And we see serverless very similar as kind of this generic open source framework that enables you to provide a service once, and we can put it on AWS, on Azure, on Google Cloud, or on-prem with the same effort, because you're using the open standard, right? So there, I mean, the marketplaces are great, and of course the hyperscaler services are great, but they're not solving this problem, right? Vice versa. I mean, if you were as an ISV want to bring an application to the AWS marketplace, well, then you use the AWS integrations and APIs and the way that they package stuff. And well, that's of course not the same way that Azure and Google do it, right? So you have to do it twice or thrice or even more times, right? Docker, Kubernetes, Helm, Crossplane, Prometheus, these are all open source projects. Does Servala replace them? No. It's actually the tech stack we build on top of, right? So we use a lot of the open source and cloud native tooling, not only because we're a member of the Cloud Native Community Foundation, organizer of the meetup and stuff. We like that. We like this way of public collaboration, of open source, of open standards. So just like Kubernetes provides us an open standard with how can we manage infrastructure, no matter who provides the infrastructure to us, Servala provides a way to manage the services running on those infrastructures, no matter who the service comes from or who is the user of that service. So it's building on top of it, and we use actually all of these within the Servala stack to be able to provide that service and to be able to provide that service anywhere. It's not tied to one infrastructure API, or one infrastructure provider. And this enables us again to provide this as a service on your infrastructure. So it's not tied to a hyperscale platform. So how does this compare to like other databases, service providers, like Avon or Serverlines or others? So we have a few offerings that, of course, are similar. So we provide the most used open source database, for example. So do the others, of course. We provide a lot of other tooling as well, which they don't provide. That's maybe one differentiator. Also, they started maybe 15 years ago, so they are mostly like virtual machine-based services. So that's, of course, we run 100% on Kubernetes. That makes it much easier for us to onboard new infrastructures, which of course makes it for us much easier to be able to provide this anywhere. Avon only caters to like tier 1 and 2 cloud providers, so hyperscalers and let's say like over regional ones, like continental ones. Several lines because only enterprise, but doesn't do cloud. So that's exactly because it's so hard to onboard these kind of services using virtual machines. And so that's, of course, something that we think is much better in this kind of cloud native way of doing stuff. And all of them actually, they take the open source project and then they themselves make it into a service alone, which is a valid business model. We chose a different one. We chose to work together with the ISVs, not only to collaborate and help them and work on, of course, also work on bugs, work on support, work on guarantees for updates and that kind of stuff. But also, of course, profit from their innovation, from their tooling, from their what they have something in their product that is better than other products, or else they wouldn't be on the market. And of course, we're working with them helps us again to use that innovation. And of course, that's something that happens only when you work together with partners, where that's working with infrastructure consulting or enterprise private cloud partners, but especially also with working with the ISV partners. And so that's something we do. We chose to do very differently, and I don't think that will change. And so I think that's also a very big differentiator compared to other ones that work together. If you have any questions, put them in the Q&A, and we're happy to go into them afterwards in the Q&A session. So some examples and references about software partners, public cloud partners, enterprise private cloud partners, and I have some success stories just for you to know, like, okay, who does this? What do they do and why? And what's is this all just vaporware, or is there actually some meat to the bone, so to say, right? So as Vision, we have, of course, worked for a long time with different product companies. And of course, the whole idea of providing software products as a service isn't new. We have been doing this for 11 years now. So whether that's with Red Hat, also with IBM now, we're one of the few GitLab Select partners in Switzerland. We work with Enterprise DB for Postgres, with MariaDB, the company, as a fork of MySQL. There's Forger for source code management, Keyclow for identity and access management. I mean, a lot of these projects are open source. There's usually a vendor or a company providing like enterprise support for it in the background. And of course, that's partners we have been working with for a decade already. And of course, all of them are already either available or we now have on the roadmap. You see the down below ones are coming soon. And we're now there. That means we have already been working with them as part of some solutions, but they're not yet in this kind of self-service catalog where you can click and deploy them by yourself. That's what we're working on now, and look forward to some new announcements in the near future. So these ones, as you see, this isn't new. We have been doing this for quite a while, and so have the partnerships with the public and private cloud partners been. So whether it's with the hyperscalers, we've been working with, of course, for a decade. Also, like I mentioned, like the small and medium-sized cloud providers. So, for example, medium-sized cloud providers like Anna, Stackit, T-Systems in Germany, Telekom A1 Austria. We have the Swisscom in Switzerland, so large telcos. We have more like IT outsourcing providers, UMB, Spectra, Levigo, and then smaller public cloud providers like CloudScale, Xscale, or Cyberlink. That, of course, we've been working with for a long time, and of course have this the benefit of this self-service catalog included in them. And of course, we have quite a few enterprise private cloud deployments already, whether that's Finova, vendor in the core banking software, HIN, Health Info Network Switzerland, provides healthcare data and billing. We have the Minister of Health or the Department of Health of the City of Frankfurt. The Swiss government. Acravis is a bank. Taurus is an asset management company. Fintech for crypto asset management. Sobrado is an insurance broker. HRM Systems does human resource management, software as a service. And Eberhard is an actual industry company, but they have a huge IoT platform for excavators and other industry stuff that they do. And of course, all of them have well, maybe not the last one, but all the others are in regulated industries. They have their own virtual or private cloud environments, and of course, still need all of this kind of software services supporting their custom software development. So that's, of course, something that has helped them and has helped us use this. And maybe I have a few examples picked out. So for a large Swiss telecom operator, which was actually the first customer of this, already has been in production now since 2021. We run a few thousand database clusters. Now that's running on the same stack as the Servala offering is now. That runs on the on-prem Kubernetes service. We have both in Kubernetes and an Open Service Provider API integration available for them. And of course, that's where all the experience comes from running this and running this at scale. Another example is Finova. We're lucky to have them as a customer. They do not only the core bank systems, but also the outsourcing of the operations of that. And with operations, you can imagine we have the same problems as Tobias introduced earlier. They needed the whole platform. They needed the whole services on top, and of course, then be able to run their banking systems on top of it. And for them, we not only built the OpenShift platform, but also then select services on top that they have been managing themselves, so that they can then basically deploy their front applications on top of it. So the pink OpenShift one, including the OpenShift services, and then select few of the yellow services like databases and so on, is stuff that we're happy to support Finova and their customers in the 24/7 operations. Another example is the Acrevis Bank. Acrevis Bank has their own software innovation platform. So it's a way of kind of keeping the core banking systems and the kind of fast-moving front ends separated from each other, which I guess makes sense from a risk point of view. And from them, we're lucky to be able to provide them not only with the OpenShift Kubernetes platform, but also the whole set of standard platform services on top of it that they can then use to basically develop their software on top of it, that their customer and agents, so their internal workforce, then use to that they develop actively and of course get this innovation ball rolling. I mentioned Taurus already as the crypto asset management fintech. There we also did a public reference story with together with Red Hat. I put the link in the description down below with the PDF. So that was a cool project to be shown. We have been managing their platform 24/7 since 2020. So since then, they have expanded from Switzerland to 3 continents. So that's been an interesting ride, of course, as with a lot of customers. And last but not least, the health department of Frankfurt, they are or have been developing a health department management software in open source, which I think is probably unheard of, right? For like a public body to develop software in open source. It became law in Switzerland actually pretty recently. They already started, I think, 1 or 2 years ago with the development, and we won the public tender to operate not only the OpenShift platform, but also the services on top of it, like databases and so on, in their virtual private cloud environment that they then can use to basically have each health department has their own software stack, and then they have like services to integrate and communicate with each other. So that's an excellent example, I think, of this kind of open collaboration, open innovation that I would not have expected from a health department to happen, but I think that's an awesome way, and they're very we share a lot of common values. So I'm really proud to be able to support that project as well. And with that, let me show you what's there already. What do we do? What do we have? So 2 weeks ago, we were able to launch Servala.com, the platform. It's public now, Servala.com, and you're of course very welcome to check it out. We have not only a teaser about services, cloud providers, and consulting partners, which I'm going to come back to in just a second. We also have like a lot of FAQs, and if you have more questions, just put them in the Q&A box or in the comments down below. So that's of course something that also helps to get feedback and to start discussion, right? We have a lot of services which I already showed you on the slides. We have already here. So whether that's like Keycloak for identity access management, databases like Postgres, platforms like Credit OpenShift, the replication firewall, Airlock Microgateway is already here, GitLab, of course, Grafana, Kafka, and so on and so forth. A few of them, of course, are coming soon, as I mentioned earlier. And also, if you have something that you think you're missing or that you would be interesting, please just give us a hint. That's always interesting. It's always good to see like what is their demand. Like, do you have a partner for that? That would be interesting. Of course, super interesting for us to collaborate on. We have already a few cloud providers onboarded, so a few Swiss ones, a few German ones, and we already have a few partners in Austria as well that we're working on onboarding also here on the platform. And also here, if you have a cloud provider that you're missing, please give us a hint, please give us feedback. So we're happy to reach out to them and ask them for collaboration. And last but not least, the consulting partners. We have a few partners that we've been working with for a long time, listed in here. They all have their own like specialties. They all consult like different kind of services. So that's of course also so interesting to see, and of course good to have a look at. So if you go, for example, into a service and pick, for example, OpenShift, there you have like on which cloud providers it's available. You see the consulting partners that are available for that service, and of course you know that they have skills in this topic, and that of course makes it easier to find the right partner, right? And then down here you see like the different options, and then of course if you click on one of the cloud providers, you see like the cost, and you can order it right now, right? And what we're currently working on is that you can not only order it in a plan, but if you're logged in, that you can basically just automatically deploy it, and that's exactly what we're working on right now. That's coming up in the next few weeks. We've already been working on, and of course, this integration is already is happening now with partners, for example, like Exascale. So in the Exascale marketplace, there is already the Managed OpenShift by Vision, and you can click on that and you see all the details in there, and you can then start ordering it, right? Very similar as with, for example, CloudScale. They also just launched their marketplace very recently. There you have services from Vision, for example, and of course the same services that you already saw on the Servala webpage, but this is then more branded by CloudScale themselves. And then if you click here for details, then you're again back at the Servala page, and you see like what's available and the pricing and all of that already in the context of CloudScale, of course. One other cloud basically is our product Apuyo. Apuyo is the expert hosting for expert software engineers, which incidentally runs both on CloudScale and on Exascale. So when logging in, you can choose which one you want to go to. And here, for example, choosing one of them as a demo, right? So what we currently have, so once it's integrated in the serverless.com portal, you'll be able to do it from there. Currently, we have it here in the Apuyo console. So there you can already see like different services. So for example, if you filter by vision, you have here Keycloak, MariaDB, Nextcloud, and so on. You can order provisioned by yourself. Let's take MariaDB for an example. Let's take a little bit a smaller one, give it a name, DemoDB, and then create. There's not much to see, right? It'll take about 15 seconds. And after that, you can already go and see the MariaDBs, DemoDB. You see here it's synced true. That means the order has been processed, but ready false. It's still starting up the database for you. And of course, there's a lot of if you have a look at the documentation, for example, for MariaDB, you see there's a lot of different options you can set. Not you use only so like sizing and the name. You can specify the version. You can have like what kind of sizing and maintenance and backup schedule and all of that is all stuff that you can basically choose by yourself, and you then make sure that the database is provisioned accordingly in the background. And after a few seconds, here the ready should become true, and then you have a database basically available to you. Let's go have a look at the secrets. Oh, no, that's the parameters. In a second, there should become a Kubernetes secret that basically gives you the host name, there it is, MariaDB credentials. It creates like a host name that your application can connect to, username, password, the whole URL that you can directly give to your application and connect to it. And even like the SSL certificate, if you want to use like an encrypted connection to the database, that's of course also possible. And so there you see that this whole self-service, creating one, deleting one, creating one for a new test environment takes a few seconds. Didn't have to call anybody, didn't have to open a ticket to anybody. It just works by itself. And I think that's exactly the vision and the idea of Servala that we're of course have been working on for a while now, and that we're super proud and happy to show now to the rest of the world, and I invite others to collaborate on this through the open source. And with that, we're already at the end of what we prepared in slides and explanations, and I'm happy to take a few questions from the audience. So I see the first question is, so where is AI and ML? Which is an awesome question. Thank you for asking. So Servala by itself does not currently have zero AI by itself. We do have, for example, with IBM, we have the What's Next AI Data Studio that's on the roadmap for deployment, which incidentally also runs on OpenShift, of course. So that's something that then it's basically the workbench that you can use. We're also working on the OpenShift AI workbench. So that's Jupyter Notebooks, Kubeflow, all of these open source tools, basically as a managed service included into you, so that you can do your own AI and ML stuff on top of it, right? But of course, over time, I'm sure we'll integrate some sort of recommendation system. So if you use Postgres, then you might also want to use Redis for caching or whatnot, right? Or Valkey. So that's of course stuff that this kind of recommendation learnings from the usage of the combination of usage of the services. That is of course something that might be something that will come up in Servala. Excellent. Next question. What about with proprietary service offerings? Can they also participate and be added to the catalog? Yes. So we have kind of three different use cases for proprietary services, right? First, we have like, let's say, proprietary commercial software that can still be packaged using, Docker, Kubernetes, Helm, and so on, and can run anywhere and can be deployed anywhere. Course, against a fee, a license or something, right? As we, for example, already have with GitLab Enterprise, or also with Red Hat Object Container Platform, the enterprise version, right? So for any of the enterprise versions of the services we provide, there we already have a very similar approach, but they run wherever the customer run. So that's of course absolutely possible. It's already there actually right now, right? We have the second kind of proprietary service is kind of an external service, like kind of a cloud service or something. So that's a use case we will support, and we're actually already working on it because we have partners that need that, right? So these services will then not run on your infrastructure, which kind of defeats the purpose of an on-prem marketplace, but there's still services that a lot of our customers use. So whether that's like a CDN or something, a CDN makes sense that it's not on your infrastructure, but still you might want to have an easy way to procure it and use it and that kind of stuff. So that's something that we're working on also integrating. We call it the external SaaS type of service. So that's of course something that absolutely makes sense. And then the third service is basically other service providers that want to offer managed services. And that's exactly, yes, as a use case that we were doing the open standard for the API, so that you can basically have any managed service provider that supports this API can then bring their services, whether they're then are in the cloud or on-prem or wherever. So that's in that sense kind of out of scope for us or for Servala, but it enables this kind of pluggability. So you can add more of this kind of Servala providers basically. So that's already that's actually in there by design. So yes, that's all stuff that we do. Excellent. And then follow-up question. What about customers' individual services? So are customers able to add services only for themselves in their catalog? Yes. So that's the whole idea that of the open standard of the also not only is the web application will be open source, but also of course you can then configure it yourself, whether you can filter out stuff you don't want to have from the upstream catalog from us, or whether you want to add your own ones. That's absolutely possible, yes. And of course, the ones that you develop by yourself, you don't want to, if you don't want to commit them upstream, then they're only available to you, but that's absolutely possible as well. Yes. So it's kind of this kind of, well, that's very similar to kind of the internal developer platform, right? Where you have your internal definitions of how you work, your internal definitions of how you collaborate, but you don't necessarily share that externally. You can still use our services, and of course, you can also add new services that are only available internally to you if necessary. Yes. Excellent. I have a question. Why now? That's a very short question, but actually, thanks for asking. So we feel that it is, of course, a zeitgeist thing, so it's I think the time where it was necessary to ship your data to where the service was running, I guess that time is over now. I think there is much more thoughts about where do we want to have your data, and I guess this product helps customers to decide where they want to have their data, whether it's in a on-prem cloud, whether it's in a cloud of a partner, whether it's somewhere else. I think that's absolutely something that enables this choice. And I guess before you had to go to a hyperscaler if you wanted to have like database as a service, but with Servala, of course, you could have it also on-prem. And I think this giving customers the choice to choose where they want to be, I think that's something that is now more important than ever. And I think it's kind of an evolution, right? I mean, maybe at some it's similar, like I don't know, with mainframe computers. They also had to be centralized for a while, and now we have distributed computers everywhere, even in my back pocket. And I guess that's very similar with cloud services. For a while, for as an industry, maybe for the past 15 years, it was needed to centralize them, but now they can run anywhere. And I think that's the not only the advent of edge computing, that's maybe a word that describes this phenomenon, but of course I think it's also for kind of the whole governance and sovereignty, data sovereignty that's pushing for this. And I think that's a good thing. I think choice is a good thing. And we have another question. What's the easiest way for a developer to start experimenting, like deploy a three-tier Hello World app using star as code? So the easiest way to start experimenting is to use the serverless services. You can, for example, use them on your cloud, right? So there you can already deploy your application, and then you can kind of order the external services. We are working on the description of how you can package your own application so that it can be started as a serverless service. That's exactly what Tobaru was mentioning. So that's work still in progress, and we're happy to support you there. So if you want to reach out to us, we can already share the draft with you, and as soon as it's public, we're of course happy to announce it to the larger audience also. Excellent. I see a raised hand, but do you want to put it in the Q&A box, please? Let's take another question that is about pricing. What is pricing for users and partners? So the pricing for the Servala you already saw on the servala.com. Most of the services have a price per month per instance, for example. Depending on the service, might also be a price per user or something like that, right? Or bring your own license. So that's, of course, that's already there. And then for cloud service providers, we also have a revenue share model, so that they basically pay, or they keep a part of the revenue from their customers for the infrastructure and the management, and of course as a margin, and then they pay a part of that to us, and then we pay a part of that to the ISV, and of course we report to the ISV the number of instances that we're running and that kind of stuff as necessary. So that's all public there. If you want to know more as a cloud provider or as an ISV, then talk to us. We're more than happy to discuss and show you what we have and what kind of revenue share models and all that kind of stuff that we have in the background. Excellent. I don't see any other questions at this time. Tobru, did you have any closing words? If not,
Thank you.
Thank you for your attention. We're super happy to have launched yet another open source product as vision. We're just over 40 people now based in Zurich and in Vancouver. And we're super happy to bring this kind of partnership with both not only the cloud providers, but also the ISVs to the next level by basically automating ourselves away. That has always been our mission, and I guess that's something that we're actively doing with Servala. And we're not only doing it, we're also giving it away for free, and it's an open source because we believe that's enables better collaboration. And I think that it gives us more time to work with the people and not only with the computers, even though we work in IT, of course. And with that, thank you very much. Subscribe to updates. If you're watching the recording on servala.com, there's the subscribe to updates. Please enter your contact details. We're more than happy to reach out to you. If you have any more questions about the contents or the tool or the product, reach out to us. Leave a comment down below. And with that, thank you very much for your attention and looking forward to hearing from you.